Hello YouTube. In 2024, international researchers at the Arctic Floating University searched for giant viruses in the archipelagos of Franz, Josef land and Novaya Zemlya in the Arctic Ocean for the first time in the world science. What are these giant viruses? The size of the SARS-CoV-2 virion, which caused the coronavirus pandemic, ranges from 50 to 200 nanometers, and the giant pythovirus from the permafrost of Yakutia reaches 1,500 nanometers, 30 times more. And it's kind of scary. If an ordinary virus is capable of a pandemic, what can you expect from a giant one? Moreover, they have been opened recently, and as it turns out, they live almost everywhere. Artemy Goncharov was part of a French-Russian team of scientists who managed to isolate giant viruses even from the mammoth tissues. I will give you his credentials later in this video, so you understand when he talks, he knows what he's saying. These are viruses with a gigantic and complex genome. Their origin is unclear. It is unclear what threats they may pose to humans. It is assumed that they can infect human cells. Now it is an object for intensive research. We assume that Arctic ecosystems may be carriers of unique representatives of this group of viruses. Therefore, microbiologists stand on the deck next to oceanologists to receive samples of seawater. They land by boat on islands with glaciers, polar bears, and steep cliffs of bird markets, so to say. And on the mainland, laboratories are looking for giant viruses among DNA samples. There are DNA sequences of these viruses in the soil metagenomes from the bird clusters, or markets, as it's called, bird markets, of Franz, Josef land. Artemy Goncharov shared the results with Russian media. Here is the insight on the polar regions from another Russian scientist, Alexander Asachiev, PhD, senior researcher at the P.P. Shirshov Institute of Oceanology of the Russian Academy of Sciences, head of the Laboratory of Arctic Oceanology, winner of the Russian President's Prize in Science and Innovation for Young Scientists, and scientific director of the All-Russian Floating University program. It's no secret that the Arctic is rapidly changing due to climate warming, but most of the Arctic Ocean is still covered with ice. And the main question is, what is going on under the ice? We know this very poorly. In other oceans where there is no ice cover, Argo measuring buoys float. It's an international network for ocean observations. About 4,000 buoys have been launched since the year 2000. They drift at a depth of about 1 kilometer, turn on once a week, or start up, sink to the depth of 2 kilometers and rise to the surface, taking measurements of temperature, salinity of water, and so on. What they collect is sent via satellites, and then they dive back and turn off. Thanks to them, oceanologists have studied these upper 2 kilometers very well. But in the Arctic, buoys cannot float. They hit the ice, break, and no longer work. And we don't have any idea about it. Ice gets in the way even of satellites. Observations from space have transformed our understanding of what is happening on the surface of the world's oceans, what currents, internal waves, eddies, and plankton blooms are there. It's all easy to see from above, but again, not in the Arctic. That's why we need expeditions. We won't know anything without them. Now there is less ice in the Arctic Ocean. Large areas of water open up in summer. They can already be observed from satellites and come there by ship. We recently managed to discover a new current in the deep sea trough of St. Anna between the Barents and the Kara Seas. Nowhere else in the 21st century can a new current be discovered. They're all known, but in the Arctic, yes. Scientists call an interesting process in the Arctic Ocean Atlanticization. Imagine you suddenly see the warm water has appeared in the refrigerator in the kitchen from somewhere. Not so long ago, by scientific standards, warm water was discovered in the Arctic Ocean. From where? From another ocean, Atlantic. There are no clear boundaries between the oceans, and water from the Atlantic is slowly seeping into the Arctic. This invasion began at the beginning of the 20th century, apparently, and now even in the central part of the Arctic Ocean, Atlantic water is present, warmer. But the most striking picture of Atlanticization is on the border of two oceans in the Barents Sea. To understand what is happening to the sea, scientists cut it without a knife. With the help of Rosetta, a weighty chain with bathymeters and probes, it is winched into the depths of the sea from aboard a research vessel. The vessel gets up at the right point to measure temperature and salinity, take samples of chlorophyll, heavy metals, microplastics, and so on. A series of such measurements is called a section. The oceanographers in the section don't really look like scientists. Wet, slippery deck, salty splashes of icy water, waves, rolling waves, rubber boots, thermal underwear, waterproof jackets, hard hats, and chilled fingers. Warm Atlantic water apparently accelerates the melting of ice in the Arctic. And the big question is how all this will continue to develop on a scale of decades. Will it increase, or on the contrary, will it stop? Alexandra Sachaev continued, global warming in the Arctic is 3 times faster than on the planet as a whole, and the melting of glaciers is one of the main dangers. The level of the world's oceans will rise, flooding resort islands like the Maldives and the beautiful cities like Venice. It is critically important to understand the rate of irreversibility of melting of the ice sheets of Greenland, Svalbard, and the archipelagos of Novaya Zemlya and Franz Josef land, as well as Antarctica. Maxim Chervyakov, candidate of Geographical Sciences, head of the Department of Meteorology and Climatology of the Saratov National Research State University, states this: an equally worrying issue is methane emissions from underwater permafrost. Permafrost occurs not only on land but also at the bottom of the Arctic Ocean, on the shelf. It is also a greenhouse gas like CO2, but we do not yet know if it can dramatically increase global warming. The ice also tells us what the climate of the past was like, and thanks to this, they help us imagine what it will be like in the future. Scientists are drilling the ice shelves of Antarctica and Greenland, and this is a real-time machine. The ice that is being extracted from the depths was formed hundreds of thousands of years ago. They contain ancient bacteria and viruses, pollen and ash from ancient volcanic eruptions, traces of past temperatures and atmospheric composition. These data are indispensable for paleoclimatic reconstructions and understandings of the Earth climate, according to the Russian scientists. The climate in the polar regions influences extreme weather events in temperate latitudes. Arctic invasions are increasingly leading to severe cold snaps, recall the meteorologists. Climate change is affecting the Arctic ice regime, the degradation of permafrost, onshore and underwater, and changing the lives of polar bears, walruses, and other inhabitants of the polar regions. It is important for us to understand how ecosystems are changing and how we ourselves can live in new conditions. According to Nikolai Shabalin, General Director of the Center for Marine Research at the Lomonosov Moscow State University, oil and gas production and exploration are underway in the Arctic. Ports and other infrastructure are being built, and the Northern Sea route is developing. All of this affects the environment. On the one hand, we study the natural conditions in order to protect engineering structures. On the other hand, to ensure environmental safety on the Northern Sea route and minimize the impact of shipping on the environment. The most unexpected discoveries are now being made not by polar bears and penguins, but by polar inhabitants that are not visible at all, viruses and bacteria. Polar microblogs study the oldest microbial ecosystems on Earth, endoliths they develop in rocks. Biodiscovery, that is the search for potential new antibiotics. The fight against antibiotic-resistant infections is extremely relevant for medicine. Enzymes, anti-cancer agents, antioxidants, studying ancient viruses and bacteria in permafrost, says Artemy Goncharov, MD, head of the Laboratory on Functional Genomics and Proteomics of Microorganisms at the Institute of Experimental Medicine, professor at the Department of Epidemiology at Northwestern State Medical University, Mechnikov University. We are currently conducting extremely interesting research on the search for ancient and viable bacteria in frozen mummies of Pleistocene animals found in Yakutia. Together with our colleagues, paleontologists from Northeastern Federal University, we're studying the microbiota of mammoth Yana. She lived more than 120,000 years ago. We're preparing an expedition to Lake Untersee in eastern Antarctica. Studying the lake's ancient microbial ecosystems will help us understand the early stages of the evolution of life on Earth. There is hope to find microorganisms in this and other subglacial lakes of Antarctica that will help create new antioxidants and antimicrobial compounds. We're also planning research in the continental Antarctica and the most pristine places of Antarctic oases. The question of the extremely extreme conditions in which pathogenic microorganisms can live and spread to humans is intriguing. The subglacial lakes of Antarctica are unique reservoirs isolated from the environment for hundreds of thousands of years, and it remains a mystery what forms of life can live in such extreme conditions. The answer to this question may even give a clue to the possibility of life on other planets, according to Maxim Chervyakov, the Russian scientist I mentioned earlier. Traces of ancient microbial life forms have been found in the subglacial Lake Vostok at the depth of more than 3.5 kilometers, which provides valuable information about extreme ecosystems and conditions similar to extraterrestrial ones. There's nowhere else place like this on Earth. Look at my other videos about Antarctica and the Arctic regions. Understand the attention paid by world powers, of course, and extraterrestrial interest in all of this. Understand that the places are continuously visited by UFOs and USOs, as was confirmed, for example, by the Soviet military. You can see photographs of UFOs over Antarctic islands and so forth in my videos. And I'll bring you more information of this sort in the future. And if you like my research, please support me through the links you'll find in the description to this channel. Please subscribe to my channel. Please like my videos. And thank you for your attention to my work.